God is worthy of our worship. He designed us with a natural desire to worship, and it's what or whom we worship that defines us. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The first people lived in a perfect relationship with Him until they chose to disobey Him, and sin came into the world, breaking their perfect relationship with God. But God, our Creator, loves His people very much. He promised to send a Redeemer to save people from sin and heal their relationship with God. God is amazing and worthy of worship. Years passed, and the people of the world continued to disobey God. They also became confused and started to worship false gods. They even started to worship themselves. This happened to the people who lived in an area called Shinar. The people living in the land of Shinar wanted to be famous, so they started to build a huge tower. In Genesis 11, verse 4, we read that people said, "Come on, let's build a city for ourselves. Let's build a tower that reaches to the sky. We'll make a name for ourselves. Then we won't be scattered over the whole earth." The building may have looked something like this. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. Interestingly, verse 6, God said, "All these people are united and speak the same language. That is why they can do all this. Now they will be able to do anything they plan. Come on, let us go down and mix up their language. Then they will not be able to understand one another." God was angry about their efforts, so He confused their language and scattered them over the face of the whole earth. Imagine that! So, by confusing their languages, God kept the tower and the city from being built. The place was called Babel, which means confused, and God scattered the people over all the earth. After the people scattered, God revealed a plan to send a Redeemer to fix people's broken relationship with Him. God called a man named Abram to be part of His big plan. Abram lived in a place called Ur with his nephew Lot and his wife Sarai. One night, God spoke to Abram. God had a special promise for Abram. In Genesis 12, God told Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's family. Go to the land I will show you." He called Abram to leave the country he knew so God could start a new nation of people who would worship only Him because He is worthy of worship. So Abram obeyed God and followed Him to a land called Canaan. Later, God told Abram He would give him so many family members that counting them would be like trying to count the stars in the sky. God also promised to give them a land to live in. Abram believed God and worshipped Him right there by building something called an altar. Abram worshipped God because He is wonderful, powerful, and mighty. God created us to be in relationship with Him, and He is worthy of worship. The people at Babel worshipped false gods in themselves. The people only cared about themselves. Abram worshipped God by building an altar and choosing to obey Him. Abram did nothing to deserve this special call or blessing. God singled out Abram and his family so he could have a people for himself. So, from Abram, whose name God would later change to Abraham, God started a family line from which the Redeemer would eventually be born. God knew that this Redeemer, Jesus Christ, would turn people's hearts back to God so they would worship only Him. God had a plan to bring people into relationship with Him so they could worship Him alone. He is worthy of all worship and praise.